Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to invite you to this IBT Thought Leadership session with economist Mitali Nikor. Mitali is the founder of Nikor Associates, an economics research group which raises questions about policies pertaining to a wide range of sectors with the aim to continue questioning policy efficacy and creating better policy design. She is a development consultant for the Indian resident mission of the Asian Development Bank and a short term consultant to the World Bank. She also holds the position of assistant director at the School of Economics and Commerce at Amas University. In addition, Mitali is a global shaper with the New Delhi hub of Global Shapers Community, an initiative of the World Economic Forum. She is also a thought leader at Center for Public Leadership's Fellowship Program. Focusing on infrastructure development, industries, MSMEs, and economic corridors, Mitali's work spans a wide range of sectors, both in South Asia and Africa, at the national and sub-national level. Mitali has led research inquiries on infrastructure financing gaps, gender-based discrimination, framing policy, and programmatic and project-level interventions. Today, we will be talking to Mitali about the economic impact and uncertainties being brought about by the second wave of the pandemic, how it has panned out across sectors and employment. Also, we will be talking about the recovery strategies that India can adopt to successfully navigate and emerge stronger from this extremely difficult period. Good morning, Mitali. It's my pleasure to welcome you and thank you for joining this IBT Thought Leadership session today.
Thanks a lot, Virat. I'm really excited to be here. And, I think it's a very difficult time for all of us at this point. And to be doing this discussion in that context, keeping, all the sensibilities in mind. But it is still important to discuss the economy. So I'm glad that you picked this up.
So, Mitali, we moved from the first phase of the lockdown where we talked about masks, social distancing, PPE kits, to this second lockdown, which is now about oxygen, perhaps most definitely, and then obviously the uncertainty, which seems to be much higher now surrounding the economy. So, how did you see the economy recovering over the previous lockdown? And I think it's been just over a month where things seem to have gone from positive to bad to worse. How was the economy recovering, and how do you think the second wave has really impacted this recovery now?
So it's interesting, actually, if we trace the entire year, if we trace from March 2020 to March 2021 and then April 2021. Why I'm dividing it like this is because when we look at March 2020 to March 2021, it's really a story of, okay, yes, a sharp fall after the lockdown. And the first quarter, April to June 2020, we really did see growth rates declining. I mean, we know there was a 24% decline in GDP in the first quarter. But after that, and this is noted in the economic survey as well, there was a, I mean, I would not say a very sharp V, but it was something resembling a V-shaped recovery. And we were starting to see green shoots come up even during the Diwali period and the third quarter of FY 2020-21. We were starting to see those revivals in the consumer sentiment because at some point there was a realization that, okay, the virus is getting controlled. We know how to live with the virus. That's very important. I mean, it's not going to go away, but we were starting to resume normal life alongside the virus with COVID appropriate behavior. But with the second wave, at the onset of the second wave till April, if you notice, a lot of international organizations like the IMF, World Bank, ADB, everybody was projecting that in 2021-22, there would be a growth rate exceeding 10-11%. There would be a very strong recovery this year. But what has happened in the last 1 month is that the story has entirely changed. And we are at a point where we are operating, as you said, in very high uncertainty. And this is a time where, contrastingly to last year, last year the economic impact was because of the lockdown, much more than the virus. This year, the economic impact is because of the virus. Because the lockdowns are starting to be imposed in late April or May 2021. But whatever we are seeing for April is basically the virus at play. Because people are ill, people are experiencing the infection at very high levels. Therefore, economic activity is slowing down. So that's where we are today.
How has the second COVID wave impacted the economies of rural and urban India? And I'm asking this specifically in contrast to the previous wave. So, what is your analysis say about that?
So actually, I've been studying the employment data from the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, because employment is an interesting indicator, that actually tells us how the health of the economy is, because we don't always get GDP data on a high frequency basis. Now, it's interesting because I think that in the first wave, the impacts were spread out, but some sectors like agriculture were spared. Now, why am I saying that? Because when we see the data between March to April 2020, the initial impact of the lockdown, we actually saw that sectors like services and industry, the secondary sector, were very strongly affected. In fact, employment in the secondary sector fell by 68%, and within that, in manufacturing by 44% in just 1 month. Now, when you contrast that to what is happening now, industry and services haven't actually lost employment. It's flat. There's no growth, which was happening through 2020, but March to April 2021, no growth, but flat. Agriculture, on the other hand, which had seen no impact March to April 2020 in employment. In fact, that time, the jobs were flat there. Suddenly seeing in 2021, huge job losses. So that is the first difference. And the second difference is who is losing the jobs. In 2020, it was the salaried people, business people, small traders, wage earners. These were the categories where we were seeing the job losses, but farmers were safe. This time, the job losses, out of the 7 million approximately who lost jobs in April 2021, 6 million were farmers. So it's very clear that the job losses are concentrated amongst farmers in rural areas, and that's happening more as a result of the virus than the lockdown. So, that same impact is starting to play out, that, it's not the lockdown, but the virus which is impacting the economy this time and impacting people this time.
So, you have done some analysis on the various sectors of the economy and how they have been impacted. So, at this present juncture, which sectors do you feel are the most vulnerable, and why do you think so?
So the first one is definitely agriculture sector, because we're already seeing a lot of job losses in the agriculture sector. I don't think that there's a problem with the fundamentals, in agriculture sector, because it's not like, we're not seeing any major changes right now in the agriculture sector. I think the problem is with the movement of the labor, because a lot of agricultural laborers are not able to move from one state to the other to perform the work. And the second is that even within their own states, the agriculture that is going on, because this second wave has become a rural crisis, people in rural areas are quite badly affected. They are falling ill, and in fact, they are even succumbing to the virus. That is why agriculture has become very vulnerable. The second sector, which I feel is quite vulnerable at this time, is again in services, contact services, high contact services, wholesale trade, resale trade, hospitality. All these sectors are definitely very vulnerable because of the lockdowns. So in May, I think the second highest or maybe even the highest job losses may actually occur in services sector. And that also in urban areas because of the lockdowns. The third one, which of course starts to get affected by these things, is construction. Now, again, in April, we haven't seen any job losses in construction. Actually, we have seen some job gains happening in construction. So if because of the lockdowns, these sectors are asked to shut down and construction projects are asked to stop, which of course is likely, with the number of lockdowns we have at state level, it is very clear that this will be the next place for job losses. So it's these three sectors which I feel at this point. I don't think manufacturing is going to get as badly affected this time, because I think that a lot of state governments are allowing manufacturing activity to continue so long as the workers are living in proximity to or within the factory premises. And I think that is important to keep the economic activity, at least some of it, going, and not disrupting that, as long as COVID appropriate behaviors are taken within those factories.
Would you like to elaborate on the point that despite agriculture and healthcare being essential services in this pandemic period, why is employment falling in these sectors?
So I was as surprised to find, I think I want to talk about healthcare first because we've talked about agriculture quite a bit. But, I was quite surprised to see the numbers for healthcare falling, especially in rural areas. Actually, if you bifurcate the healthcare employment in rural and urban areas, you find that in urban areas, actually, healthcare employment has increased by 1% from March to April 2021. But in rural areas, it's fallen by 49%. And that is absolutely shocking, because at this point, we should actually be seeing a lot of government spending, if not CSR spending and private sector spending, going into ramping up healthcare services in the rural areas where the crisis is unfolding. But with this situation, and it's not, I mean, it's a shock, right? That suddenly, why is there a fall? And my theory here is that a lot of the workers in healthcare services, as well as in agriculture, may have fallen ill and may have, actually not been able to go to work in the last 1 month. The other, thing could be, and I mean, of course, these are all several factors, right? It's not just one factor which leads to such a huge fall. I think it could also be a situation where, governments are not stepping in. Private sector was probably running some healthcare services in these rural areas, and governments haven't actually been able to step in fast enough, especially state governments. So we now need to have a situation where quickly state and central governments, as well as private sector, especially CSR funding, just goes in and sets up very nimble healthcare facilities, in rural areas. It doesn't have to be big, buildings. We literally need quick COVID care centers. We need COVID, management facilities, oxygen facilities to be ramped up in the rural areas. Another reason could be that when private sector was involved in healthcare, because of the COVID crisis, they shut down many of the other services, the regular services, because they only wanted to focus on COVID. So that could be one of the reasons for the fall in employment as well in rural areas. The main thing, we talk about oxygen a lot. And the reason we talk about oxygen a lot is because in urban areas like Delhi and Mumbai, etc., there is an oxygen crisis. Everybody is on social media asking for oxygen and concentrators and cylinders, etc. But in rural areas, I'm sure you have seen a lot of news coverage, etc. We've all seen the visuals. I think basics are required. We need to send a lot of PPE, masks, gloves, and cleaning equipment. We need to keep the hospitals in a sanitary condition, and the primary healthcare facilities. A lot of these may have shut down in the last 1 month because of fear that, if we stay and keep our services open, then we could all get COVID. So that is important. So unless you have the right, gear like personal protective equipment to keep the doctors and health workers safe, it's difficult for them to discharge their services for even non-COVID related healthcare activities.
Some manufacturing sectors have come back strongly in terms of employment as per your analysis, like gems and jewelry and automobiles. What have been the main drivers for the recovery in them, despite the overall economic mood?
I think that what's happening with a lot of sectors is that, as per, and then this was also pointed out in the Ministry of Finance's April 2021 monthly economic review, there is a learning by doing. In manufacturing, a lot of companies and industrial parks and all these areas, they have actually adapted to working alongside COVID. So there have been protocols which have been put in place, and we can expect, of course, automobiles are run by large organizations. A lot of auto plants are run by large companies, and of course they want even their suppliers to be following these COVID protocols. So it's a it's a value chain kind of effect that you have an auto component supplier. They're probably talking to them saying, you know what, we at Maruti are doing this, or we at Volvo are doing this, or any of these companies, and they're making sure that down the chain also there's a adoption of COVID appropriate behaviors. So with these sectors, auto components and this particular sector, I think that there is a resurgence, and also the consumer demand was improving domestically as well as export. Both cases the consumer demand has been improving, so auto sector seeing a resurgence is quite natural. Also there was an increased focus on electric vehicles, so a lot of auto sector companies are now starting to forage into EVs and the different components for EVs. Research is one part of it. It's also, supplying. And bicycles actually saw a huge resurgence during the pandemic. Export markets asking for more and more bicycle, sales happening in export markets. So these sort of effects coming together has resulted in a better, buoyancy in the auto sector. Now, when it comes to the sector like textiles, see, the initial impact on textile sector was huge because suddenly you saw that a lot of your traditional categories, like ready-made garments and also, outside like saris, etc., which used to be a very big sales ticket item, saw a huge reduction in demand, and that has not come back to that extent. But what textile firms have been able to do is pivot. They have been pivoting in their designs. They have been coming up with new items of clothing. Loungewear, for example, has become a huge category, not only in India, but also abroad, right? And in fact, the other day I was reading an article about how Tirupur, which is one of the most important textile clusters, they've actually registered a huge growth in their export demand in this year because they could actually pivot to different types of knitwear to cater to the export market. So while I think in both these industries, textiles and auto, it's been able to weather the storm in that sense and show a growth even in April 2021 because there are long-term factors which are contributing to the success of the sector, especially in terms of pivoting. Same thing for gems and jewelry. You start to pivot in your designs and your adapt to the new consumption demand, which is why now finally, even after, and especially in textiles and gems and jewelry, it was a slower recovery process. Automobiles were slightly faster through the year, and even in April 2021, there's still a growth in employment. But there are other sectors which are not doing as well within manufacturing, and we have to obviously cater to those sectors as well, like cement, etc.
So, although most of the services sectors have faced a crunch because of vanishing of demand, especially due to the contact element, media entertainment seems to have witnessed a massive upheaval, not just in terms of the growth, but also in the way media and services are disseminated. So, how do you view the transformation in this sector over the last year?
I think it's good to see this growth in the media and entertainment sector. Overall, we've seen a boom throughout 2020 in the employment, and in 2021, in the last 1 month, of course, a small flattening, but it's not lost much jobs. And it's interesting how the sector has evolved through the year because we've seen that something which would have in pre-COVID times maybe taken decades to implement, the amount of digitization that's come into this sector has actually, we've just seen the growth by leaps and bounds in terms of changing and pivoting to digital service delivery. The only subsector within media and entertainment which I feel is still suffering, and of course it's not resulted in a net job loss because people have maybe pivoted to other work, other sectors, or even within the sector they've pivoted, is the theatrical distribution setup. The actual film exhibitors and the film, because the theaters haven't actually fully been able to open back up. I mean, they opened for some time and then they closed. But definitely when we look at the growth of digital media, whether it's using social media, whether it's pivoting in the magazines and publication sector towards having digital arms, towards having more and more digital content, and people even consuming that digital content behind paid subscriptions and services. What that is the more interesting one, where you see that there is a change in the consumer behavior. They are willing to pay and they are accepting that yes, a service to a digital platform like a media platform like Hotstar or Netflix or Amazon Prime or in any of the others which have come up with the Indian investors as well, right? Like Z5 and the others, they are all willing to pay for those services. And even in the magazine subscriptions, it's not only that we are paying for international magazine subscriptions, but we are also now willing to pay for articles behind paywalls on mainstream news channels and mainstream news publications in India. Of course, the pricing of this is very low compared to the international pricing. A Wall Street Journal will charge a huge amount in the US for its subscriptions, and in India you can get Live Mint for much cheaper.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the fact that Indians are even willing to pay a small amount, albeit in urban areas, it's an important step into the growth of the industry, so that more and more content can be curated for the consumer. And you also have a growth in Substack subscriptions where people are paying for small amounts, but paying for newsletters to be given to them by independent content producers. So these are very interesting trends that we are seeing in the urban setup.
So, Mitali, how do you feel India should plan its recovery now? Because obviously there are some uncertain elements in front of us. And how
Hmm.
do you view the current situation panning out over the next 2 years?
So, Virat, last year we saw that the government was very proactive and they came out with very comprehensive packages to deal with the economic fallout of the first wave. First of all, the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, then the Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, and even in the budget, we saw a lot of announcements. So, I think we have to sort of take it from there. First of all, at this point, immediately, we need a comprehensive social protection plan. What do we mean by that? We say, okay, many of the measures that were introduced last year worked really well. The Jan Dhan Yojana worked very well. Giving women some income transfers, it worked very well, because even now, when we look at the job losses, we can see that almost 5.6 million rural women are the ones who've actually lost jobs in April 2021 versus March 2021. And in fact, rural men and urban men have lost some jobs, around zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 million. Urban women haven't lost that many jobs, but many urban women are not even looking for jobs. They've actually stepped out of the labor force. So, we have to give women support. And the Jan Dhan Yojana is one way of supporting women with unconditional income transfers. So the quantum and number of installments can be increased. Last year, 500 rupees per month was given for 3 months. This year, it can be for more months, or a higher quantum can be worked out. That is very important, especially for rural women and even for low-income women in urban areas. These women are require that support right now. They have really lost jobs much more than men. Now, the second is that we have to look at social protection even for farmers. Now, the PM Kisan scheme has been one scheme which has been performing very well ever since it was launched. And even in the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, there was actual dissemination of the money which was done in the bank accounts of the farmers. PM Kisan definitely needs to be expanded. Right now, it is based on the farmers who own land, and that's the document that farmers give to identify themselves. It's important to extend PM Kisan to landless farmers. It's important to extend PM Kisan to agricultural laborers as well, and give them income transfers, because we know that this time agriculture is the sector which is in distress. We have seen the maximum job losses in April 2021 in agriculture. So we need to come in immediately with a social protection package for farmers and agricultural workers. Now, having said that, having done this immediate step, right, because this is something which we need for, say, the next 3 months or 6 months, what do we do about recovery? Because, what is it, what are the sectors which can really lead us to recovery? So a start has actually been made with the production linked incentive scheme. We have identified 10 to 12 priority sectors, champion sectors, and that is starting to give, some benefits. But beyond that, we also need to give support to the MSME sector, because MSMEs, again, it's not coming out in the April data, but I think it will start coming out in the May data, that MSMEs will start to feel the pinch of the second wave. Because again, maximum number of MSMEs are outside of the urban areas in tier 2, tier 3, and industrial clusters, which are close to rural areas, where again the virus will be very virulent and will be spreading in this way. And second, MSMEs were already suffering, through last year with NPAs and liquidity issues. Even though many measures were actually taken to ease their liquidity issues, we probably have to do more. So liquidity is one. RBI has already come out with those announcements, but we also need some more schemes for MSME sector, especially to increase the employability and give them support for hiring more and more workers. So can we think about wage subsidies for MSMEs? Can we think about a situation where you say, okay, MSMEs should be given some amount of cash support if they provide apprenticeship to young workers in 1 year, or for 1 year, for 2 years, something like that. Because if you see the data, it's actually young people who have the highest unemployment rates, both in urban and rural areas. So the second wave, which was not the case in the first wave actually. So second wave, we are seeing a lot of youth unemployment, and apprenticeship schemes and MSMEs can be promoted. Now, of course, aside from this, we have to increase the investment in the health and care economy. Now, health is one part of it, right? We need more hospitals, we need more oxygen, we need more PPE, we need all this COVID-19 response material. That is one part of it. But then there is also care work, child care, elderly care, long-term COVID care, because we have a lot of instances of long COVID also, which are being reported in developed countries. In the UK, actually 20% of COVID cases are long COVID cases, which can last up to 6 months, 8 months, symptoms. So you need to invest in care facilities which are backed by public and private investment. PPP model for care economy. We need that. And we are seeing countries like the US lead the way. I mean, the Biden jobs plan is actually talking about investing nearly $400 billion in elderly care in the US, a lot of which will go into long COVID care as well. And they're actually talking about investing 25 billion in childcare. So, we need to free up the time of women from unpaid care work. It's actually going to be the women who will end up doing all of this care work, and it'll all be unpaid. So instead of that, we can easily set up community care centers in both urban and rural India and invest in that. It will spur job growth, it will spur GDP, and it will also provide employment, a lot of it which may go to women. So it will be very good for inclusive growth. And in the longer term, we need to create an ecosystem around manufacturing sector. Right now we have started with the PLI scheme. Okay, that's good. But in the long term, you need an ecosystem which works. You need transport, better transport and integrated logistics. You need a system where, renewable energy is used much more for industrial purposes. You need wastewater recycling. Why should we be using fresh water for industrial purposes? So, and even for agriculture. So we need to invest in those emerging technologies. And the most important, my favorite and most important sector, which I always recommend, is digital infrastructure. And we've done, one discussion on that before also, that it's very important to invest in, we have a national broadband mission. It's important to scale up the investment in the national broadband mission and improve digital literacy so that more and more people in rural areas can get into and form part of the digital economy. It shouldn't be restricted only to urban areas. We can unlock the power of the digital consumer sitting in any village or tier 4 or tier 5 town and say, yes, we can access the same digital content that a person in Delhi can. And so just think about how the market size will grow through the digital infrastructure. So it's very important to improve the digital infrastructure.
So thank you so much, Mitali, for those very insightful and well-informed views, which help us obviously decipher the current situation. And even from the individual level to the entrepreneur level and to the economy level, we see that despite all the uncertainty and the devastation that this crisis brought, it's a time perhaps for new ideas and new ways of thinking how we move forward. And I really appreciate you giving us your ideas on how India can move forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the interaction.
Same here. Okay. Thank you, Mitali.